Hi, it's Tina again today, and my tutorial for today is how I created my Halloween house. I think this is actually my favorite project with the October kit. I had so much fun with this and just kind of went crazy with all the detail. These are probably between scrapbooking and art journaling and canvas making. These are my all-time favorite projects to make. So the first thing I did was take my art part pieces and coat them with black gesso instead of white gesso because I knew I wanted kind of a dark look to it. I used the translucent embossing paste, which is available in the store, hopefully if it's still there. Love, love, love this stuff. I didn't want to use the white embossing paste because I wanted a clear, shiny look. So that's why I chose to use that. And right there, I'm using some of the magicals that were included in the limited edition kit. And the magicals are awesome because you can color all sorts of medium with them. And you can see that wonderful color that's created with it. I think I ended up using the black one, the black magical. You can mix magicals with gel mediums, with embossing, with modeling paste. You can mix it with anything. It's wonderful. So I'm just taking that embossing paste that I mixed up, the translucent and the magicals, and I'm using the exclusive Frog Dog Studio stencil, which again I love, and it actually is wonderful with these house pieces. And I'm just adding that texture. You can see how fabulous that looks on my art part pieces. And when that dries, that translucent is actually clear, but it will dry shiny, not matte like the embossing paste will. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to all of my house pieces. So now I'm going to take some more of that translucent embossing paste. This time I'm just going to use my little palette mixer, and I'm going to use more magicals, and I think this time I'm using the green. I think it's called Freakin' Lime. Or Frankenline lime, I can't remember. So I'm mixing up the magical with the embossing paste, and I'm going to use that on the little, I believe they're little door pieces. And when I originally started this project, I was going to put doors on my houses, but you'll see at the end I actually use those as tombstones, which I thought was kind of cool, and maybe that was the intent, but I don't think it was, because I don't think this was a Halloween set. It was just a house set, so I think they are doors. But I'm just using one of the new stencils, and I don't know right now if those are actually still available in the store or not. I think those ones sold out. But I'm using those just, again, to create a fun, different pattern on those little pieces. Then for the roof, I took some of the paper that was included in the kit, and I'm just tracing around it. And I'm going to go ahead and cut those out and use matte medium to attach it to the roof, just again to create different texture and a different look for the house instead of just adding the embossing paste to the roof piece. So that's just me applying with the Claudine Helmuth matte medium, which I love. It's the best matte medium I think out there. I use it all the time. Just applying those cut out pieces of paper to the roof. And again, I'm not real particular. You all know that if you've seen my videos. It wasn't perfectly cut exactly straight, but to me that's what makes art interesting, when it's not so perfect. So I just set those aside so they could go ahead and air dry. And now my houses are actually dry as well. So you can see how that is a transparent look, but yet it's shiny, and you can see some hint of that color. I wanted to add more depth and layers to it, so I took some of the Screamin' Banshee spray and just sprayed it right onto the house. And now I'm going to take some of the green spray and do the same for the little door or tombstone pieces. Again, it'll sit in between those crooks and crannies of the embossing paste and you'll see different layers and colors and shimmers. And I'm using the Ghostly White, which we have in the store, and I'm spraying that right on the roof pieces. So now what I'm going to do is start building the background for my house. So I'm using the 5x7 canvas that was in the limited edition kit. I actually mixed my kits a lot this month. I love them both. And I'm just cutting or ripping up some of the paper from the main kit to start building a background. So again, I'm using the matte medium, and I'm just going to go ahead and apply it to this 5x7 canvas to start building a background for my house. That piece of paper there was just an ephemera sheet that I had in my stash because I wanted again to add some different color to it. It was a Halloween ephemera sheet that I had. I think it's like a potion sheet. I just went ahead and added that to my background. I do eventually cover that up with paints and some of the magicals, but you can see all of this in the background. That ticket sheet was in the limited edition kit as well. I just took a strip of it, and it was the real cool funky orange color, which would have matched perfectly for my project. So I'm just adding a couple of strips of those tickets right onto the background as well. So I had these bats actually. I had gotten them from Retro Art Cafe, and they were just plain masonite. I wanted to create something cool and different with them, so I'm using the white embossing paste that was included in the kit to add some fun texture. And again, I'm just applying it just randomly onto the top of the bats, because I'm going to go ahead and add some embossing powder to it and heat it right as it sits. And it was so cool, and it doesn't get picked up so much in the video, but when that dried, I got it really close so it started bubbling, and it created this really fun look on these bats, and it's so much better than just a plain masonite bat that I could have painted. So I'm using the embossing powder that was included in the kit, which I love too. I used it a lot. I love the black with a hint of gold in it. And it stuck really well to the embossing paste. And yes, I actually did throw that away. I wasn't even thinking to put it back in the jar. It went right in the trash can. So I heated them up and melted them. You can see what they look like in some of the close-up shots of my house. So now, like I said, I wanted to add some color to my background. The background has dried, the embossing or the matte medium has dried. So I poured some of the orange spray, the Lindy spray that was included in the limited edition kit. I just poured it to my palette and painted it on the background, and then I sprayed some of that white, ghostly white onto the background too. And you can see me adding some of the black onto the rooftop too, just to add some layers. So now what I'm doing is taking the ViewMaster reel that was included in the kit, and I am very liberally applying the embossing paste, not the translucent, but the white, to this, because I'm going to make a moon out of it. And I loved how I could not have said that turned out any better, but I'll show you in a little bit how I finished making that moon, because I set that aside and let it dry. I apologize for the fuzziness of this. I'm not sure what happened with my camera during this segment of the video, but I'm taking one of the web pieces And like I did with many of the other ones, I mixed some magicals in with the translucent embossing paste, and I'm adding it to the web again to create kind of a shiny texture look instead of just a plain chipboard piece. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do, I wanted kind of an old rustic fence type look to the front of my houses. So this stamp was in my stash, and I'm just using embossing ink, and I'm embossing this grid type pattern onto the front of my houses because I'm going to use some of the embossing powder that was included in the kit for the front of them, and that turned out really cool too with that black with that gold shimmer. So I'm just melting it right there, and you can see, I think I put them up close. So you can see how that turned out. It was pretty awesome looking. So now I just actually sprayed more of the black, and I think in some of the purple onto the background, and I have the background how I want it. Then I took my reel, and after the embossing paste had dried, I sprayed it with some yellow spray mist that I had in my stash, and I think I actually used a Tattered Angels in a Studio Calico color. Then I took a stamp that I had, and I had some of the yellow embossing powder that we had in the store, and I can't think of the color right now off the top of my head, and I embossed that moon too, and it turned out really cool. So what I was doing previously was actually cutting out some of the little pieces from the ephemera sheet and just inking them up to age them a little bit, because I'm going to start building my house right now, and these are all the different pieces that I've put together. So that right there was some of the paper that was included in the kit. I put some of the crackle paint on it, and then I distressed it with some distress paint or distress ink, and it created a really cool old look. And these are the little tombstones. After they were dry, I took some of the alcohol ink and dabbed it on there just to kind of age them up a little bit. This fence I created with the modeling film that was included, or not in the store or in the kit, but it's in the store. And I just cut out a fence shape, and you heat it with a heat tool, and you can mold it, and it's super easy and super quick. And then I recolored it with some alcohol ink too, so it was a pretty fun little project. So you can see me taking some of the little pieces that I knew I wanted to put on my house, and I'm just kind of playing around with it to see how I want to make my little houses. So I'm taking the paper that I had applied the crackle paint and ink to, and I'm just using some artist tape to attach it to the back of my house so it doesn't go anywhere. And you can see I have my little cobweb in there. I had actually, after it had dried, I applied some white ink to it too, just to make it look kind of like a cobweb. And you can see that in the close-up photos. So I'm just adding some adhesive just to make sure that that cobweb doesn't go anywhere. And this was from the ephemera sheet. It was just one of the cats. So I cut it out and inked it up with some distress ink. So I'm going to just use some pop dots so it pops off of it and looks like it's sitting in the window. And it wasn't thick enough, so I had to add 2 layers. So then I took the roof, and you can see on there I actually took the stamp that was included in the limited edition kit and embossed a little pattern onto the roof sections, and that added a lot. And I did that on both pieces. In the beginning, I originally was going to use 3 houses for this, and I ended up only using 2. I used the 3rd one in another project, so that's why you don't see the 3rd house here. But I did the same technique on both pieces of this house. So now I'm getting ready to put my moon down, and that to me was one of the coolest things in this project. It was something unexpected, but it turned out perfectly for what I wanted to do. Now I wanted this second smaller house to stand up a little bit, and I really didn't want to waste all of my pop dots. So I just took some spare cardboard that I had sitting aside, and I'm cutting it down to size so I can fit it right behind that smaller house so it kind of sits up a little bit, and I'll just glue that down onto the canvas. So I'm not really using my pop dots, and this is a little bit more sturdy anyway. So now with the fence piece that I made with the modeling film, I wanted it again to kind of stand three-dimensional off of the houses. So after I placed my tombstones down, because I wanted those to be behind the fence, I didn't want them to be in front, I'm placing some adhesive and some pop dots on the back side of the fence so it can sit flat on top of it, but obviously the smaller house sits higher than the bigger house, so it would be crooked if I wasn't doing this. So I'm just adding different layers of foam tape to the background so the left side of the fence actually sits in line with the other side of the fence. Now, one thing with the foam tape I was using, I did have a darker color, I didn't have black. I really didn't want it visible because the fence post shapes were pretty thin. So I'm going to go ahead and take some of the black gesso that I had, and I'm actually going to paint the edges of it so it blends right into it. And I wasn't being real particular again, but that really hid that foam tape from being visible. Not that it would have been too much anyway, but this took away the chance of it being visible at all. So I'm just painting the edges of it so you can't even see it, and it blended right in with the fence. And you can see on my houses, I placed the little skull that was in the kit right on top of the largest tombstone. I've got my bats glued down. So now I'm going to add some of the other fun little cutouts from the ephemera sheet. I had the little pumpkin that I'm going to go ahead and add to my scene as well. And then I took the words that were included in the kit, and I had glued those down to the background. And then I'm using the rub-ons that were included in the limited edition kit, and I'm just adding again some more texture to the houses. And that's what I'm doing right here. I'm just adding some random numbers and stuff to the houses to make them look like they're actually houses. And a tip is, if you don't really want the whole rub-on, just take some regular Scotch tape and you can lift it up in random spots, and that's what I was doing. And then to finish my houses off, I'm taking some more of the Magicals, and I'm just using a dry brush, and I'm rubbing it in, and it got into all those crooks and crannies inside the house, and it was kind of a cool shimmer to it. So now my house is done, and I hope you enjoyed the tutorial today. I can't wait to see what you guys create with your houses. Please share them on Facebook. Thanks for watching.